Hello, it's Tracy Kiernan, and this acrylic painting tutorial is going to show you how to paint a celestial sun and moon painting with acrylics, and I'm doing this on a 9-inch by 12-inch canvas. So let's go over brushes and colors. There are only 5 colors in this painting color palette, which is kind of nice. So primary yellow, cad orange hue, ultramarine blue, Mars black, and titanium white. I will be using 4 different brushes. You are welcome to simplify this and maybe not use all these brushes. So a 3/4 flat, an 8 round. So I use this brush specifically for detail work because it has that little point on it. There is quite a bit of detail work in this painting. This 12 bright brush I only used for the clouds, so the clouds are optional for this. If you're not going to do clouds, you probably won't need that brush. And the number 4 round brush is always a necessary brush. I use that for pretty much most of the painting detail work as well. Let's start by painting the background. So the background it's a blue background, but on the far left we have a very dark kind of night sky, and it blends to a lighter color daytime sky on the right side, which is kind of fun. And so this is Ultramarine Blue, Mars Black, and Titanium White. I'm going to start by painting the light side first. So let's do about equal parts white and blue together, and you can kind of double load your brush. You can mix it on the palette a little bit, but I like to not mix it all the way because I like to get this color variation that happens when our white and blue blend together. So I'm going to paint a lot of this lower right corner with this light blue. I'm going to grab a little extra white and add a little pop of extra white on the lower right so that it's nice and light. So this is where our daytime part of the sky is going to be. And it's going to quickly start blending to our dark sky. So to get to the dark, we got to use more of that blue. So I'm going to load my brush in just the blue over here. And by the way, I'm doing expressive paint strokes. So I'm using the full width of the brush, and I'm doing these like angled strokes that blend on the canvas, kind of flip-flopping my brush. It's a good way to blend colors by doing that. I don't want to blend it all the way because I really like that color variation, and I like that texture with the paint strokes still showing. And so you don't want to over blend it because we want this part to start getting dark, and we want to keep the lower right light in color. So we don't want to work it too much. I'm going to start working my way over here. So when we get to about the middle part of the canvas, let's go ahead and rinse our brush off so that we get the white off of the brush. And we want to kind of get that excess water out. And let's grab our blue, and let's grab just the blue right here. So we don't have that white. So we have the pure blue in this area. And we can kind of work that transition zone where that blue meets that sort of medium and light blue color. And we're blending on the canvas. This is called wet on wet blending, because you're blending with that color that's still wet on the canvas. I have maybe a couple inches of space over here on the left, and I'm going to start introducing my black. So I'm going to grab my blue and grab just a little bit of black on my brush so that it turns into a dark blue. So you only want to use little bits of that black, not too much. And then I'm taking this and adding it in the upper left corner. So that's how dark my sky is going to get. And then I'm going to bring this over here all on the left side of the canvas. And I'm going to load some more ultramarine blue. And I'm going to take this and blend this in here with our dark color. If you need to add a little bit more black into that, you can, but this is going to blend. So now I have my dark part of the sky. It's going to be blending in with my medium and light color of the sky. You can boost your blending a little bit by adding just a teeny bit of water to your brush. You don't want to ever add too much water to the brush because sometimes that water becomes too much and kind of goes under your paint and starts running that color down, and it's not fun when that happens. And just blend that in. You can have your paint strokes still show, that's fine. In the end, we likely won't see those paint strokes because we're going to do a layer of stars over that and lots of detail work in our sun and moon that's going to be covering a lot of this background anyway. So now we have our sky that blends from night until day. In this next step, we're going to do splatter paint stars, and you do not need to wait for your background to dry to do this. You can go ahead and do this step. I like to use a toothbrush to do stars, and I found a good proportion of water to paint is to add just a little bit of water with your finger to the brush, and then use your finger to add a little bit of white to your brush. Test it out on a different surface first to make sure it's not too watery and not too thick. And then when you have a good consistency where it's not dripping or anything, you can splatter. You just flick the brush all over your canvas. Sometimes you'll get a big splatter like that one that I did, and that's okay because that's actually going to be painted over later anyway. But the little stars show up really nicely in the dark part of the painting, but you can do it all over. And then I'm actually going to use the rest of this black paint to paint the sides of my canvas. And we are going to need to let this dry before going on to the next step. So in this next step, we will be drawing 2 circles, and I recommend finding some household object circle to trace. I'm using a Pyrex dish for this, and this is about 4.75 inches in diameter, and I'm using a 9x12 canvas. So you're gonna need to change that circle kind of depending on the size canvas. And actually, what you can do is take your height. So if you're working on an 11 by 14 inch canvas, do the 11, so the shortest side of the canvas divided by 2. So that would be like a 5.5 inch circle. If you're working 16 by 20, you find like an 8-inch circle. I'm doing 9 by 12, so I'm doing 4.75, which is kind of close to 4.5. So you can find like a 4.5 circle or something similar. It does not have to be exact. But anyway, so the moon and the sun circle are about half the size of the smallest height of the canvas, if that makes sense. So I'm using a white chalk pencil just so this will show up on the camera. If you don't have the white chalk pencil, you can just use a regular pencil for this. But you want to trace your circle in the upper left, and you want to leave some room. It shouldn't be like right on the edge of the canvas, so give yourself maybe like a 1/4 to 1/2 inch of space on the top and the left. So after tracing the circle, we can move our circle a little bit to the right. You want to give your moon enough space so it's not like super small, but not too big. So you can do this 2 ways. You can actually take your circle and you could give yourself like an inch of space on the left, inch, inch and a half, and do your second circle in there. That creates the crescent. I actually don't like how that turns out, so I'm going to move this and erase it and show you what else you can do. So that gives you a nice pretty crescent. Or you can hand draw your crescent in there and you get a little bit more control over what that looks like. So I'm sketching that in there. And then after I get that curve to the way I want it, I can draw the nose and mouth. So we have a profile nose. So this is going to curve down and form a nose shape. So it sticks out quite a bit. There's my nose. And then down here, so this part of the line I'm actually erasing because it ended up being larger. And then my mouth. The mouth I discovered looks very much like a heart shape. So you see that kind of heart shape? It's got the tip to it and it kind of curves and has the two bumps on the side for the heart. So if you think of it like a heart shape, it's not too tricky. And then you do your second circle. So this one I actually did with a pencil because that white chalk isn't going to show up as easy on the light colored background. That one, all we need to do is trace the circle. We're not going to do any of the detail work in there yet because we're going to have to paint over it anyway. But again, leave yourself a good amount of space on the left and the right so the sun isn't completely on the edge of the canvas. You could make it closer to the moon if you want, but I did maybe like an inch of space on the far right. Same size circle. And then next, this is really easy. We just need to paint both of our shapes in. So I'm using titanium white and the 3/4 flat brush, and I am going to paint this circle a solid coat of titanium white paint. This is because the sun is going to have colors that are going to look translucent against a dark blue background. And so adding this layer of white is going to prime that to give us a nice bright layer of paint. I'm not going to paint the sun rays white, and I kind of did that on purpose. So the sun rays are going to end up being a little translucent, but the sun is going to be the bright part. So just solid white for this circle. I found the 3/4 flat easy to kind of cut in on the edges of that circle. If you want, you can use your round brush to kind of get more control on that edge of the circle, but I found it very doable with this brush. You just gotta be really careful to cut in as close as possible to that line. If it ends up not being a perfect circle, that's okay. And then next, we're going to do the moon. So same thing, I'm going to use a lot of this brush for the moon. However, because the moon has some smaller areas, I am going to switch to a round brush, especially where the points are to the moon. I'll use the round brush for that. So I'm going to switch to this number 8 round brush specifically because it has that long point to it and I can get in there and really get the tip of the moon right here. So the fine point to that, you can just use the very, very end of the bristles to fill that in. And I can get the nose and the mouth in too. So outline that shape and then fill it in. And then I'm going to use the very end of the brush to fill the mouth detail in. I'm actually going to adjust the mouth a little bit so it's closer to the nose. But I may end up painting over this later, which we can do. So if we mess up on the mouth or the nose, we can always just take our background color and paint over it. By now, the circle for the sun should be dry or mostly dry. If it's still really, really wet, you may want to wait a little bit to do this step, but we're going to paint the sun. And for that, we're going to use Cadmium Orange Hue and Primary Yellow. We'll also be using Titanium White, but for now, we just need the orange and the yellow. Let's use our 3/4 flat brush, and I rinse that all off. And we are going to repaint the sun, but we're going to paint it with color now. So I'm going to take yellow and red, or yellow and orange, mix those two together equally, and you'll get like a yellowish orange out of that. And just paint the inner part of the circle on the furthest part of the edge. So not the center part, the outer part, outer inner part. And I'm loading my brush in orange and yellow just to get some color variation. What we want to do is we want to make the sun kind of darker on the outside and lighter in the middle. So I'm using mostly orange on the outside, but also using that yellow to get a little bit of variation in color. Get all the way to the edge. And then as you start working in the middle, start grabbing more yellow on your brush and blending that yellow in the center. You might end up needing to rinse your brush or wipe it off if it's got too much orange on it and you're not getting that yellow to show up. And then before this dries, I'm going to add a little bit of white in the very center, and that's going to brighten up the center a little bit more. So I'm going to rinse the brush. Take my white and add white in the center and just kind of blend this out. So my center is light in color. It reminds me of an orange, the fruit orange. And just kind of blend this out. So we have light in the center, and some more orangey on the edge. Before I paint the moon in, I'm actually going to cover the lips up because I'm going to redo the lips. This is something that you may not be doing, or you may feel like you want to redo the lips or no, so up to you. But I'm going to take black and blue, basically just mix whatever color is in the background over here, which is mostly black and blue. I'm just using my round brush, the number 4 round brush, to just kind of cover that up. And then now we're going to paint the moon. So I'm going to mix this aqua color for the moon. So if we did blue and white, it would blend in a little bit too much with the sky, but we're going to add yellow to it to kind of make a different kind of blue. It's going to look almost like an aqua color. So blue, white, and yellow. And let's grab our number 4 round brush. I'm going to grab a whole bunch of blue, about equal parts blue and white together. So you're going to get that light blue that we used in the sky initially. And then just add a teeny bit of yellow in there. And you're going to create this kind of warm blue color, aqua looking blue color. So that's kind of the base for that moon. And we're just going to paint the entire moon that color. When I am reloading my brush, I'm actually grabbing different amounts of that. So I'll grab a little bit of white and blend a little bit more white in there, or a little bit more blue and blend a little bit more blue in there, just to get that kind of color variation. When you are mixing your yellow into the blue, remember to only use just a teeny bit of yellow, otherwise it's going to turn too green and your moon's going to look like a green. If you do, so you want to mix your yellow all the way, so you don't want to have streaks of yellow on the moon, and you want to use a higher proportion of blue so it looks more aqua instead of green. Use the 8 round brush to get in there, but you can see that color variation. I kind of want to do that on purpose, so you have streaks of lighter color, some darker color in there. It makes it look more interesting. And then get the nose painted in. So the far right part of the moon, like the nose, lips, those are going to be lighter in color. I'm going to make sure I kind of add more white in that area so it kind of looks lighter. The middle part and the kind of the far left part of the moon are slightly darker. I am going to do the lips, but I want to just make sure I have the shape of the moon all painted in first. I have that nose in. I will do the lips after that part of the background dries. So I'm just going to leave it like this, and I'm going to actually move to the sun again, and I'm going to do the rays next. So rinse all that blue aqua color off of your brush, and I'll use the number 8 round brush, and we're going to do the sun rays. So sun rays are orange and yellow, so I'm going to double load my brush in orange and yellow. I'm going to use the number 8 round brush. I'm going to draw out the triangle first and fill it in. So this triangle is maybe like 3 inches long, and it's at the very, very top of the circle. So this is going to kind of set the standard for about how long each of my rays are going to be. And we're actually going to divide this up. So our next ray is going to be on the very opposite, vertically down from that. This is going to help us space out the rays evenly. So another triangle, you likely will find that this one's going to have to go off the edge of the canvas, which is fine. And you might be noticing that this is a little translucent. I can see the background through it, and that was kind of done on purpose. That's why I didn't paint these solid white first. I kind of like the translucent look of these. I'm going to take this. This one I kind of want to be careful not to make it run into the moon, but also I kind of use my hand to kind of measure to get it sort of the same length. But this one, I made sure the point didn't run into the moon. If it does, you can kind of angle it differently so it doesn't run into the moon. So there's my 4. And then I'm going to do another set. I'm going to do another 4 triangles, and each one is going to go in the center, but they're going to be going diagonally. So this one, find kind of the center between those 2, do your triangle, and then fill that in. We're using a variation of both of the orange and the yellow. And then you're going to find the center between these 2, and so on. The next 2, and then the next 2. So next we're going to do a second set, or a next set, but these ones are going to be kind of wavy triangles. They're about the same width on the bottom, but they curve and go to a point. So you're doing a little S line that meets at the point. Same length as well, or relatively the same length. And so this one, in between these 2, I'm actually going to curve it that way. So they're kind of curving the opposite direction. So outline and then fill it in. And I'm going to do yet another set of rays, but these are going to be thin and they're going to be a different color. So I'm going to make this sort of magenta color. And to do that, I'm going to take blue and orange and mix those two colors together. So I'm going to get more orange on my palette, grab blue and orange. You want a higher proportion of orange, so like 2 orange to 1 blue or 3 orange to 1 blue, and then add white into it. So add maybe equal parts orange and white, and just a teeny bit of blue in there. And it's going to give you this sort of kind of purpley mauve color. You can kind of adjust it. You don't want to add too much blue into there. So too much blue, oh, it's going to look like purple. So add more orange and you have this kind of mauve color. And then these ones, I'm just going to do like a curvy line. Do some color variation, add maybe different amounts of orange in there. And it's just a curvy line in between. You might find that you don't even have room for these, so if you want to skip these, you can. Next, I'm going to paint these sort of whimsical spirals that are stemming out from the moon. And I'm guessing that these are just supposed to represent wind, although they can just be whimsical, stylized. They don't even have to represent anything, but wind kind of works for this because it's the elements sun, moon, wind, stars, clouds. And so I'm mixing the same kind of aqua base color for this. So you have blue, little bit of yellow and white. But with these spirals, we want to really vary these colors. So we want some of these to show up light in color, some of these to show up kind of darker in color. And I'm using my number 4 round brush. So I'm going to just start on the end of this and extend this and do a little spiral out from the tip of the moon. And I'm just going to kind of continue this concept, a big spiral that kind of goes down. And you're welcome to change this up, change the direction of your spirals or the size. And so when you do dark, it kind of helps it to blend in with the sky a little bit more. And when you do light, it really helps it to stand out. So with each spiral, you're just going back and reloading your brush in like a different variation of that color. Big spirals, little spirals, and they all just kind of connect together. For the most part, the spirals stay on the left side of the canvas. However, if you want them to intertwine a little bit more with the sun, you are welcome to just kind of extend them everywhere. The next thing we're going to do is the detail work in the faces. You are definitely welcome to simplify this. You can even just not do the faces for this if you're a little intimidated by faces. I will tell you right now that I'm always intimidated to do faces. It's not really my favorite thing to paint, but we can do the best we can to make it look like a face as much as possible. I want to redo the lips, and I'm actually using a pencil here to redo. So remember we said it kind of has like a heart shape. I'm doing pretty much the same thing I drew earlier, but I wanted to push it up a little bit closer to the nose. So I did that same sort of heart shape see right here, it's a little bit closer to the bottom part of the nose. So I redrew that heart, the lips sticking out. So we still have that profile view of the lips. I'm going to use the number 8 round brush for this. And I'm going to paint our heart shape in white. I'm going to take this and maybe you can add a little bit of that aqua color if you want, but I'm actually just going to do the shape of this white first. So there's the top part of the lips, or the top part of that heart. If you look at it like it's a heart, and paint that in solid white. And then the bottom one, paint that in solid white as well. I'm leaving kind of a gap in the middle so we still see the middle part of the lips, that kind of division line from the top and the bottom. I'm going to grab my aqua color. I'm actually going to add a little bit more blue to my palette. So this is more like blue on my brush. And I'm going to take that, kind of paint the bottom part of the lips in. So the bottom part is a little bit darker, and the top part of the bottom lip is a little bit lighter. And then I'm going to paint this one in as well. So he's got light blue lips. And grab my black. And use black to outline the middle line, that kind of smile line, and I'm going to outline the top part of the lips with the black. And the bottom part of the lips I'm going to outline with black. So it's a very thin black outline. I'm going to rinse the brush off, and I'm going to add just a little bit of white on the far right side of the lips. I'm taking just a teeny bit of white right on the tip of the brush. I'm just going to outline the far right side and just kind of drag that in towards the left. That gives a little bit of brightness just on the end of the lips. So I love this brush because you can just squeeze the bristles and then they kind of really gather right there on the tip of the brush. Gives you the ability to do a lot of detail work. Okay, so for the nose, I'm actually going to get my pencil. So we only have this silhouette, the edge of it. I'm going to go in there and draw a little kind of curve. So this curves this way and then it curves down for a little bit more of the nose it's showing on the inside of the moon. And then I'm going to draw the eye. So he has his eyes closed, or she has her eyes closed. So little kind of eye shape that's going slightly at an angle upwards. And then I'm going to use my 8 round brush in the white, and I'm going to fill in that eye shape solid white. You are welcome to change the face, as I mentioned earlier. If you want to do eyes open, you're welcome to do that. So on the far left side of the eye, I'm going to take this blue and aqua color. I'm going to blend it in. So the far left part of the eye is darker. Far right part of the eye is lighter. So it's still that kind of eye shape, but it has dark and light on it. And then I'm going to use my black. So pinch those bristles, get that fine tip to it so you can do this detail work. You're going to give our eye an outline the bottom part of the eyelid, so that curved line is outlined black, like we're putting eyeliner on. And then eyelashes, we do these little tiny curved lines that start from that liner line. And again, you just barely using the tip of that brush to get that fine detail. This can also be done with a paint pen. So if you have a black Posca paint pen that can do these fine details, that might work as well. But I'm just doing those eyelashes on the right half of that, and they're curving and pointing towards the right. Then we can get our eyebrow shape in. So if you feel more comfortable drawing this first, you can draw it first, but I'm just going to draw a curved line. The eyebrow is thicker on the far right, so I'm going to paint this in so the shape is a little bit more rounded and thicker on this side. Still using the 8 rounds, still using the black, and it goes thin and to a point on the left side. Then let's detail this nose up a little bit more. Also optional if you like the way it looks. You don't have to do anything to the nose, but I'm just going to take the black outline. Remember that we did that kind of curved line with the pencil? I'm outlining that with the black. So there's a curve right here in the left part of the nose. And then I'm going to paint like a little circle oval shape right here for the nostril. So that part's dark and filled in. And I'm going to rinse the brush off and go back to white. I'm going to add just a touch of white right on the far right part of the nose. It highlights that a little bit. I'm adding a little bit of white on the far right, just under the nose, and just taking this white, kind of blending it. Not blending it because this color is already dry, but just kind of adding a little bit of white on the right side, because the right side of the moon is lighter, the left side is slightly darker. Kind of use my finger to smear that in if I want, but there we are. That is it for the detail work in the moon, and we are going to move on to the sun. I found the face for the sun a little bit more challenging because now we just have, instead of the side view, now we have the front view. So again, you can simplify this, change it, or not do a face. So I'm starting by drawing the lips on the kind of lower portion of the circle, and we have a curved line in the middle kind of to make a smiley face, 2 sort of bump lines at the top, a bigger curve at the bottom. So you can kind of think of it like drawing a heart, only the bottom part isn't going to a point. And then a little bit above that, we can do the nose. The nice thing about these stylized sun and moon paintings is the face does not have to be proportional. Doing the nose, little curved line in the middle, 2 kind of C lines on each side of that. I'm going to bring this up, curve it up, 2 vertical lines. Then I'm going to sketch the eyes, so 2 kind of eye shapes, curve. These are also going to be closed eyes, although you can make them open if you're feeling adventurous and you want to do open eyes. Do eyelashes. And same over here, eye. This one's closed, and do eyelashes. You can even have the sun and moon looking at each other, trying to make this one about the same size as the other one. So that's the curved line. If you want to do, so if you don't want to do the top part, you can just do see how you can just do two bottom curved lines for closed eyes. But since I'm going to paint these in like their eyelids, I'm actually going to do the top part, the top curved part of the eye. And then we are going to do the eyebrows. So a little bit above each of the eye, you're just going to sketch two curved lines. And then we want to start painting this in. So just like with the moon, how we used pretty much the same color for the eyelids, we're going to do the same thing for the sun, and he's got closed eyes. So I'm going to do yellow mixed with white, and you can even add a little bit of orange in there if you want, but I want this to be lighter than the color that's already there so that it shows up. So I'm just doing this yellow and orange, and I'm filling in the shape. And then I'm going to load the orange color onto my palette, and without rinsing the brush, grab a little bit of orange, and just on the inner parts, I'm just going to blend this. And you don't have to do this, you don't have to have the orange and blend it, but I'm just doing this to give it some color variation. It's going to look a little weird at first, but I'm just blending that orange into the yellow that's on the other side so that it is blended. And then we're going to do the same thing, that outlining thing with the black. So I'm going to switch to the number 8 round brush, grab the black. So just on the bottom, we're going to do an outline and then an outline on the other side. And then the little eyelashes, so same thing. And then I'm going to do more eyelashes. So we can just leave it like this, but I wanted to just kind of take these. And these ones aren't as long, and they're just straight and smaller. And they're still going at an angle, but going not down as far. And for the eyebrows, I'm going to do pretty much the same sort of mauve color again that I used earlier for like the smaller sun rays. So I'm going to take blue and orange and mix those two together. You need just a little bit more orange than blue to make this. And then grab some white and mix that. I'm going to take a little bit more orange in there and mix that. So we could just do orange eyebrows, but I wanted to kind of give it a different color in there. And so for the eyebrows, it's thick at first and then it goes thin. And then same thing on the other side. And then I'm going to take that color, extend it down, and outline the nose. So very, very thin, light line. Without rinsing the brush, add a little bit of white to the brush, and I'm just going to just barely add just a teeny bit of white down here at the bottom and kind of outline the nostrils a little bit, but I'm not going to go into much detail with the nose. And then for the lips, I'm going to do white with that kind of mauve color. It's like a really subtle color, and just paint those in. You may have to kind of add maybe more dark or more light to it depending on if it's showing up or not. I'm just going to do the top shape and then added a little bit more white for the bottom shape. I'm going to outline, I call this the smile line. It's the line that goes right down the middle between the top and bottom lip. So I'm using black in the 8 round brush, and then I'm going to loosely outline the bottom and top of the lips, but not like a super thick, just enough to kind of give it a little bit of an outline. And I'm also going to do just a teeny bit, like a teeny little oval shape for the nostrils inside the nose. The next thing I'm going to do is rinse off my 8 round and now use the white to outline the sun rays. So I'm going to only outline the shaped ones, so the triangle and the curvy triangles, but I'm not going to outline the thinner ones. This is optional. You don't have to do the outlining thing with the sun rays, but it does give it some really pretty contrast. And next I'm outlining the entire circle, also a very thin line of white paint, also optional. Next, we're going to paint stars kind of all throughout the background. And I'm going to still use the white, still use the 8 round. And I like to paint a little dot and then drag the paint from that dot up and down and left and right. You kind of release the pressure so the little line that you're making goes to a point, and that creates the little twinkle star. If you have any, I'm going to erase that chalk line from earlier. And then basically just paint these stars kind of scattered everywhere. You can do stars on the light part of the sky, on the dark part of the sky. Next, I'm going to paint clouds. So the clouds are completely optional. I think it looks fine without the clouds. You can do more spirals, more stars. I am going to do clouds, and I'm going to be using the number 12 bright brush for this. So I like to do dry brush clouds. I find it kind of simpler to paint them this way. And so I'm going to start with a slightly darker color. So it's not white, it's white mixed with some of that aqua color. And you only want to load a little bit of that paint on the brush, and you want to kind of dry brush it. So it should be see-through and not super thick and not super opaque. So I did a flat cloud that's on the very top of the painting above the sun. And you're just using the tip of the paintbrush to do kind of these curved paint strokes. And then on the lower left, I'm going to do a bigger cloud. So we have a lot of room over here to put a cloud. And again, it's see-through, it's translucent, it's dry. I have to kind of really press on that brush to get that paint to come off because there's barely any paint on my brush right now. I'm doing just these curved paint strokes forming the shape of the cloud. And so that's technically my darker layer. I'm going to do maybe some few flat clouds kind of in between some of these open spaces. But I am going to go back over the clouds with another layer by adding a little bit more white to my brush. So this time I'm loading it in just the white, and again, only a little bit of paint. If it comes off too bright, too thick, you want to wipe that paint off. And I'm just going back over the edges of these clouds, and when you go back over the edges, that's going to highlight the cloud and give it that kind of fluffy dimension, because you have the dark layer and now we have the light layer highlighting it, so it kind of makes it look fluffy. get a little bit more white on my palette. Again, load it, wipe it off. So this cloud, I'm going to do the highlights on the bottom instead of the top. And then just a few more random little pieces of clouds here and there. And this is the conclusion of our celestial sun and moon painting. I did go and paint some more stars off camera, some more little sparkly stars throughout the sky, and a few more of the spirals. But hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching, and thanks for painting with me.